So, welcome to the third episode of the Inking Out Loud podcast. I am your co-host, Drew McCaffrey.
I am your co-host, Rob Santos.
And with us, once again, we have our special guest, Jarrod Livingston.
Jarrod, what's up, man?
How's it going, guys?
Oh, I'm killing. It's awesome up here.
Today, we are starting a new book. We are stepping outside of the Cosmere, and we are going to The Runelords by David Farland.
David Farland.
Also known as Dave Wolverton. David Farland is his fantasy pen name.
I had no idea about that.
Nice. He's probably best known for his Star Wars book, The Courtship of Princess Leia. It was the original expanded universe book where Han and Leia got married.
You'd say that's what he's best known for?
Yeah, probably. And that was under Dave Wolverton.
Awesome. Yeah, David Farland is an author that I have never read before, and I admit really hadn't even... I mean, I've heard of him before now, but I had totally forgotten until Drew told me, or he suggested The Runelords for our next episode, and I said, Farland, I think I've heard that. Was it... He was in one of your top 10 sci-fi fantasy lists, wasn't he? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the only place I had actually heard of David Farland before this.
Yeah, so a little more background on him. He was actually Brandon Sanderson's creative writing teacher at BYU.
What?
What?
Yes.
Are you serious?
I am.
Oh my god. I had... that... You just blew my mind.
Yeah. And so
wow.
they go way back, obviously. They have a tremendous amount of respect for each other. And Brandon Sanderson is, in fact, on record as saying that the magic system in the Runelords, which we'll get into in a minute, is the best magic system he has ever read.
Yeah, and that's exactly how Drew hooked me on deciding to start with the Runelords. Is he told me that Brandon Sanderson had highly touted the magic system in this particular book, and I really like Brandon Sanderson's magic system. So as soon as he told me that, I was like, okay, dude, we're doing this one. Sounds good. And I've been listening to it. I want to make clear that I don't like. This is the first time I've ever done a first read of a book through audiobook. I reached about the halfway point. That's what we're covering today, right? We're covering the first
a little
half
more than
of the
half.
book, give or less, more or less, I should say. And I have lots to talk about, particularly with his style. I want to start off by saying that I really actually enjoy his style. It seems to me, and during this episode, I'll be the one giving most of the fresh impression, if you will, because changing it up from the last two episodes, of course, I am the one coming here fresh, never having read the book, and Drew and Jarrod are the ones who are the experts for today. So I'll be probably asking for some clarification.
I wouldn't go so far as to say experts.
It's been years.
Yeah, I have read the Runelords several times, but as Jarrod said, it's been probably 5 or 6 years since I read this.
Well,
there's quite a lot that I've forgotten. So it's been fun kind of going through and remembering things and rediscovering things. So before we dive in, I kind of want to just give a brief summary of the first half of the book.
Sure. Prime me.
If any of our listeners want to read along with us, stay fresh and not get spoiled. This is your spoiler warning right now. You'll probably want to skip ahead a minute or so. But so the Runelords, we follow mostly two main characters. Gaborn Val Orden, who is the prince of the kingdom of Mystaria, and Iome Silveresta, who is the princess of the kingdom of Herodon. And Gaborn is coming to Herodon with his father to seek Iome's hand in marriage.
Yes.
And there's a convergence happening. It's Herodon is getting invaded by the Wolf Lord Rajaten, who has conquered all of the southern kingdoms on this continent and has turned his eyes north and is making his first move in Herodon. And so right off the bat in this one, Rajaten sneaks an army through this great forest called the Dunwood and shows up outside the walls of Castle Silveresta and
how rude
takes the castle without a fight. And this is where the magic comes in.
Yeah.
So in this world, there is a material called blood metal.
I love it already.
And blood metal can be fashioned into what are called forcibles, which are basically these little rods with a rune carved on the end. and depending on the rune, these forcibles can be used to take a physical or mental attribute from one person, who's called a dedicate, and given to another person, who then becomes a Runelord. And this is called a system of endowments.
Yeah.
And so you can transfer things like brawn, which is basically strength. Brawn is the ability to flex muscles, and then there's grace, which is the ability to relax muscles. There's stamina, all the senses, wit, where basically you use somebody else's mind to store your memories. Glamour, you can take attractiveness from people. Metabolism, where you move faster but you also age faster. Things like that. And so Raja 10 is basically invincible. He has taken tens of thousands of endowments. He has gotten to the point where early on in the book, he is clawed by a woman who has poison on her fingernails, and his body just rejects the poison. He invites Iome, after taking the castle, to stab him in the heart, and she does so, and it does nothing to him. As soon as she removes the dagger, it just heals.
He's not shook.
And so he took the castle because he has thousands of endowments of voice and glamour, and he is so persuasive and so attractive that he just told them to serve him, and they threw down their weapons and opened the gates, and in he marched. And so Gaborn was in the castle sort of undercover at the time, and he fled afterward. He killed one of Raja 10's chief flame weavers, fire users.
Yeah, the elemental.
And then and took Iome and King Silveresta with him after they were forced to give endowments to Raja 10. So King Silveresta gave his wit, and Iome gave her glamour. So she is exceedingly ugly, and part of the rune was built in that it takes her self-esteem as well. So she has this conflict where she's, trying to, stay afloat essentially mentally.
Right, she's trying not to drown in her own thoughts and her self-doubts. At this point, and I think it's really important to note how balanced this magic system is. Getting right into the deep of it, I guess. The whole relationship between the Runelords and the vessels and the dedicates, it's really interesting because right away, and I find that David Farland has ways to answer your questions about his magic system, but he does it in small chunks, several chapters apart. He doesn't kind of just waterboard you with all the rules right away, which is a big trap I think a lot of fantasy authors kind of fall into. And then he answers questions that I didn't even know to ask, which is crazy.
In that style comparison, with the way David Farland builds the magic in here, where he does it, as you said, he gives you little tidbits and builds it slowly as you're moving through, but in a natural way, where he doesn't give you unanswerable questions that he has to then go back and cover. He gives you pertinent information just before you need to know it. And I thought that was a marked difference between Brandon Sanderson and himself, especially with the Stormlight Archive, where if you think back to the Zeth prologue, how that whole prologue is basically just, this is how the magic works, and it goes into all the details. These are the three basic lashings.
Right away, boom, boom, boom.
And it's this avalanche of information, and there isn't that kind of info dump in the Runelords. It's given out piecemeal on kind of a need to know basis, and then and so it's a natural progression, and you gain an understanding very smoothly and easily.
I was just waiting for the end of that sentence to say my next point, and I totally forgot. Oh, that's all right. So one of the for example, to give an example, one of the questions I had immediately upon hearing that endowments can be given, can be taken with a lot of persuasion, of course. One of my questions immediately was, how does this work? Is it just a permanent switchover, or is it in real time, I suppose, for lack of a better term? And I didn't get my answer until at least a couple chapters later. It might have been 3 or 4 chapters later, where it turns out, yes, if a dedicate is killed, if a master is killed, the whatever endowment it might be it brawn or glamour or voice, which is very important, I found so far up to this point. is returned to the original, I suppose, owner of that particular attribute in the first place.
And an interesting part of that, if a Rune Lord dies and those endowments are returned to their dedicates, those dedicates will never again be able to give another endowment.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Of any kind?
It does talk about
Am I
that.
supposed
You
to
can
know that by
only
now?
give one
Did
endowment.
I skip that by accident? Okay.
You can
And
only give
one time?
one endowment.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that. Okay, so awesome. So what do we? Okay, so I want to go back. I want to talk about Farland's style specifically.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a lot of. I don't want to say he doesn't give a lot of dialogue, but he seems to be very fond of describing. I found that he's really good at giving a lot of detail about the setting of a scene, about the scent of a particular person, or the color of the sky in the scene, or the smell of the forest. But he gives a lot of detail in a way that's not slow or boring, which is something you really don't find in a lot of authors. Like, for example, let's bring Robert Jordan into this. Robert Jordan, loved the author, loved The Wheel of Time, but he does get kind of tiresome, if you want to use that word, with his over description of settings, particularly with clothing, women's clothing. He's kind of infamous for that one, notorious maybe. But Farland can give you a paragraph, 2 paragraphs about the smell of a forest. And it's not boring. It's never boring. It's not quite as beautifully written, I would say, as Patrick Rothfuss's poetic prose.
Sure.
But he's good at giving you, like I said, a lot of detail.
I would describe it as visceral.
Sorry, what was that?
I would describe it as visceral. The way that he describes,
that's a good way to put it.
Feelings or the setting.
Yeah, so this point that Rob is making here stands out to me, I coming from a writing perspective as well as a reader's perspective, and what it is that Farland describes all 5 senses, and many authors don't do that. You'll get somebody who is really good at describing the visual or describing how something feels, and then they forget about what it smells like, or what it feels, or whatever, or taste. Nobody describes taste,
Yeah. Or you have authors that take it to the other end of the spectrum, and they'll remember to get every single one of those 5 every single time, and then it feels formulaic.
Yeah.
Right? And then it kind of brings you out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go on. I just wanted to add that there.
Yeah, so he puts this kind of immersive setting around his characters and he does it in interesting ways. It's not always done the same way. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. Let's see here. What else I have? Do we, Jarrod, any thoughts? What do you think of his particular writing style? How do you think it stacks up?
I think it can be choppy at times, like jumping from one thing to another, but I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I'm used to some of the longer writing styles where they can extrapolate quite a bit about a character coming to a certain decision or reaching a certain emotion, and I think Farland kind of jumps around a bit with that, but I don't... Okay. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing.
Maybe it keeps you on your feet, maybe.
Yeah, so this is another, definite idiosyncrasy that he has, where he tends to have much shorter chapters than you typically find in fantasy. Mm-hmm. In this book, you're going to find chapters that are less than a page long. Less than 2 pages long.
Wow.
Very short chapters.
Wow.
He'll have some that are standard, 10, 15, 20 pages long, but and then on top of that, there are things with his sentence structure that he does, where he will sort of stagger the cadence of his sentences. So he'll have a long sentence and a long sentence, and then he'll have a short sentence fragment after it. He will do this a lot if you pay attention, where he uses sentence fragments. Like he'll have a line about, say, the guard walked down the hall and did this and that and the next thing, period, and then did this. He'll leave off the pronoun. There will be no subject in the sentence. So it will be just the action.
I imagine that's something that, as a person listening through an audiobook for the first time, reading, if you want to call it, the Runelords, it's something I wouldn't pick up on, because it would just kind of fit in with the rest of the paragraph. It might just kind of seamlessly blend in. So I've definitely got to get this on my e-reader so I can actually get the reading experience and actually finish the book the way it's meant to be finished. Yeah. I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, he's listening to an audiobook. That's not how you read a book. I totally agree with you. I just want to put that out there. But I mean, I can listen at work. I'm very fortunate enough to do that. I work in I'm a manufacturing associate, so I spend a lot of time on my feet just mindlessly doing the same repetitive tasks. I can get audiobooks out of the way pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And of course, by the time I get home, I've listened to audiobooks for 5 to 8 to 9 hours that day, so I'm all read out. I don't really want to fire up the the e-reader or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But I'll make a special attempt to finish this book via text for the second half.
Yeah.
You guys want to discuss the characters?
Yes, I was about to say
each one of them. Okay, let's go over them. Who do you want to begin with? Should we just start with Gaborn, like the main character?
Yeah,
arguably?
yeah. I want to hear what Jarrod has to say about Gaborn and Iome.
I have some thoughts to add after. Yeah.
So
go ahead, dude.
Actually, it's funny that we just read Elantris, because they reminded me somewhat. So there's like that short.
Oh my god, I was gonna say the exact same thing.
There's a short amount of time where Gaborn doesn't necessarily recognize Iome until a little bit later, and that reminded me very much of Serene and Elantris.
And Elantris, not knowing that she's talking to Raoden, her husband, actually. Both royalty, both engaged or almost engaged, pseudo-engaged. That's what we'll go with, I guess. Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of similarities there, I noticed.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess I think Farland does a really good job with their relationship. I think kind of making it deeper in a very short amount of time.
It's more believable, I think. It feels like actually, here's a question that I want to know right away. Is this Farland's debut novel? No, he's got some experience before this.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that kind of answers the question as to how he managed to make it a little more believable. He just had more experience at the time because Elantris was Sanderson's first published novel at that point. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So it makes
and some of it's exactly that. I think that their relationship is very believable. Even though it is a short amount of time, but you also have to take into account that it is this kind of medieval setting where they have been in kind of correspondence before this, but Gaborn kind of we open with him really he's going into the country in Herodon under the expectation that or I guess I should say he's not sure how Iome is going to feel about him, and that makes him nervous and insecure.
A great impression, obviously. He saw her once before this. He traveled there under the guise of, was it a scribe or an assistant of some sort? A squire, yeah, just so he could gaze upon her. I noticed a lot of I don't want to call them cheesy because it's very romantic, but there's a lot of fantasy tropes I find in this one.
I think I don't know. So he kind of one thing that annoys me with male characters sometimes is when they
characters.
With male characters, yeah, when they...
Okay, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly.
They'll put a female character kind of on a pedestal.
Yep.
And I think that's something he definitely does here.
I wonder what that's like.
I think most guys could probably relate to it at some point in their lives.
Sure.
Yeah, so with that, kind of dynamic where Gaborn sees Iome as this almost idealized princess... Iome coming the other way, it is totally different. She deeply dislikes Gaborn's father.
She's got the gloves off
and assumes that Gaborn is going to be exactly the same. She assumes that he's going to be vain, that he's going to have purchased all this, glamour, that he's going to have many endowments of glamour.
She's so hesitant to look upon him.
Yeah, for the first time, their first conversation, she's purposely turned away from him for about 10 minutes because she doesn't want to be swayed by how good looking he is, and then she finally remembers that she saw him like she figures out that he was that squire on the previous year's hunt, and she's like, oh, he was plain looking, he only had 1 or 2 endowments of glamour, which by the way cracks me up how much they talk about somebody who has just one or two endowments of glamour is plain looking.
Right? I was plain looking. I'm just like, Jesus
Does she have
Christ,
4?
This
Is
sounds
that...
like
I think Iome
California
had
down
3.
here.
She had been given 4 as a young child, but one of them died.
That's starting to come back.
Yeah.
I thought it was like 2, and then a third one died, but it might be 3. And
Yeah,
4.
maybe. Yeah. I don't remember the exact number, but it's not many. And then her mother, on the other hand, is very vain, and they talk about how she's famously beautiful and she has all these endowments of glamour. And
I had no idea she was even related to Raj Aten until
he
summoned her. I was like, oh shit. Okay,
well, so they talk about it early on.
Do they?
Yeah. So when King Silveresta is talking to the guild master, and he talks about the chess game with Raj Aten, he mentions that he played that game of chess when he went south to court Veneta.
Okay.
And met her cousin Raja.
That's subtle. I like it.
Yeah.
What a way to kind of slip that in there without anybody noticing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, on the subject of Gaborn, before we go on to anybody else, I've got a couple thoughts to add. If you guys are done. That is, I don't want to be interrupting. Okay. So, Gaborn, I don't like. I don't hate. But I want to point out that he seems like, first off, like a little bit of a Gary Sue. He's it feels like he can just do anything, as like right off the bat. Of course, he starts off with a lot of, and he starts describing, he's the first one who we hear has this endowment and that endowment. He's got a couple endowments of, does he have 2 endowments of voice?
No, he is like 5 or 6 of voice.
God damn.
I think he's got 2 of brawn.
I suppose
3
that doesn't make
stamina.
him a Gary Sue, because it's endowed to him. It's not an innate trait. But he does seem he's humble, but he does it in a kind of arrogant way, if that makes sense. I wrote down, I got a quote from him specifically. One of the first things I heard him say, like that we hear him say, when Borenson is trying to talk him out of doing something very dangerous near the beginning, and Gaborn kind of puts him down right away and says, I will not listen to any poison arguments. And that struck me as very arrogant. That's basically declaring that even if you're right, I don't want to hear it because it's going to spoil my way of thinking, and I'm going to go with my way. I've decided that already. And I found that very dangerous and arrogant. So right off the bat, I guess maybe it was just a bad first impression.
Do we know how old he is?
Gaborn?
Yeah, how old is he? I get the sense that he's like 25, 28
no, he's
maybe.
like 18.
Bullshit. Really?
Yeah, it's... Let me. I have the book
I suppose
right
he
here.
has all these endowments of.
I ask because that
wit.
Yeah. So the very first scene with him, chapter 2.
Yeah, it is.
Yet none of his lessons in the House of Understanding could have prepared the 18-year-old prince for his encounter with a mysterious.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Boom. Just like that. Okay.
So some of his
he's
immaturity, for sure.
Yeah.
Or just arrogance. I wouldn't call that necessarily immaturity. It's just straight up arrogance. I mean, I can see a 35, 40, 60-year-old saying that easy. It's just, I don't know. Iome, I like Iome quite a bit better. Or more, I should say. Pardon me. She seems, she's a little more immature, I find her, but she's honest about it. Oh, I guess I could say
she's certainly blunt.
Yeah, she's incredibly blunt.
Yeah, and I like that about her. She tells it as it is. She's not afraid to just be like, okay, listen. Boom. Right. So yeah, I guess we can talk about Iome now since I brought her up. I didn't mean to switch it to her. Let's talk about Iome. What do you guys think about Iome?
So I really like Iome.
Okay.
Her conflict in this is different. It's this, magically induced lack of self-confidence that she she has to fight this constantly, or she will make bad decisions, essentially, or she will be too scared to even make a decision to act. And it's all about establishing her agency. And this is one of the things I like that David Farland does in this, is how he gives his characters agency and what they do with that agency. And I'm going to go into this much more when we talk about Borenson.
Sure.
But with Iome, it's all about her, like, in her early chapters, she's decisive, she's self-assured, she goes about her business and just does things because she knows this is the right thing to do, And then when she has her endowment of glamour taken, and with it her self-esteem, she doubts herself so much, and she waffles over decisions, and it takes things like Gaborn convincing her to leave the castle.
Yeah.
When, if she stayed in the castle, she would be undefended, basically, as we find out when Raja 10 takes his army. He tells them, don't even bother leaving guards. It doesn't matter if assassins come in and kill my dedicates. I have so many endowments that, on the one hand, it's not going to affect me, like, and on the other,
okay,
it's going to poison the relationships between these northern kings.
Mm-hmm.
It's intriguing watching her fight a mental battle that is magically induced. Mm-hmm. It's like fighting your lack of self-confidence, knowing that it's a magically induced lack of self-confidence.
Yeah, and she personifies like her, maybe not personifies, but she objectifies her struggle, where she talks about how she's fighting the rune. She talks several times about the specific rune that was used.
About the rune. Yeah. Not, I have to fight my depression, or I have to fight my lack of self-confidence. I have to fight the rune. She immediately recognizes it as an external force that's trying to change her, trying to influence her. But she's just so honest as a character that she seems, so far up to the halfway point that I've read, that she seems to be I don't want to say putting it off, but she seems to be fighting it very admirably. So that's part of a big reason why I like Iomi as a character. Do we know how old Iomi is? I get the sense that she's like 17.
17, yeah.
Oh, damn, I nailed it. Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
You want to talk about... Jarrod, do you have any thoughts on Iomi?
No, I was just the only thing I was going to add is that I think it really helped her when she had her moment with Gaborn come along and he isn't instantly revolted.
Right. She finds a lot of respect for him in that moment. She realizes that he does, in fact, mean what he says.
Well, and I think in that moment she realizes that she is more than her endowments of glamour.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a very character-defining moment, I found, when she at first decided to hide from... I almost said Raiden. Oh, my God. From...
yeah.
It's Gaborn.
She tells Gaborn that she's pretending to be somebody else, and she tells Gaborn that Iome gave her sight. She's scared to say that she gave her glamour and that he would figure out who she was. And then he figures it out anyway. But
it was a really good moment. That's a moment where I really started... Actually, I think that might be the defining moment where I decided, yes, I like this character. Farland's... I hope he's going somewhere interesting with her and her story, because I hope she sticks around. I enjoy reading Iomi. Gaborn is an enjoyable read regardless whether or not I like him, because he's got the most important things arguably happening to him.
Without a doubt.
Everything that happens with the Earth King and everything that's been happening with... is it Benisman?
Binisman?
Binisman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
who's
Earth
another
Wizard.
character I can't wait to discuss. Yeah, so let's talk about somebody else.
Let's move on to Borenson here, because he's
Borenson,
sort of the third major character. We've gotten the most points of view from him, other than Gaborn and Iome, and so he's Gaborn's bodyguard. He's only 20 years old, but he has an endowment of metabolism.
Wait, he's 20?
Two endowments of metabolism.
Really?
Yeah. And so
I thought he was like 40.
He's got like gray hair already, and
oh, that's right. That's why I thought he was like 40, because he describes himself that way. Yeah, it's metabolism.
And so he is sort of the recipient of a gift. This, like, in some ways, the scene bugs me a little bit. It feels a little icky, where Gaborn just kind of marries off Mirama to Borenson.
Yeah, that was a little odd, but I mean...
But in retrospect, he did also give her the choice. He wasn't just like, oh, you're getting married here. It was like, I recognize what you were trying to do. So this is this opening scene where this beautiful young woman approaches Gaborn in the market and tries to seduce him, thinking that he's just some minor merchant or minor nobleman. And and when she realizes that he is a prince, she, of course, is embarrassed and she backs off. And Gaborn realizes that his bodyguard is totally smitten with her. And so he
takes it upon himself.
Yeah, takes it upon himself to set them up. and tells them to go walk around the town for a little bit and to go meet Mirima's family. And so Mirima has 2 endowments of glamour and 1 endowment of wit given to her by her mother and her sisters.
And her mother, yes, thank you.
So
Which
she's
was heartbreaking
basically been
I hadn't considered that. That's another one of those moments where Farland answers something without you realizing you should have asked it in the first place.
And the way they set that up, where Gaborn is being insightful, and he says, "Oh, you have 2 ugly sisters at home and a witless brother," and she goes, "Yes, but the witless one is my mother, not a brother," and it's like, wow. So that's how you find out
really?
that
I don't
they were the
that
ones.
Specific line.
Yeah, they were the ones who gave her those endowments. It was a family choice to give, to cripple 3 of them in order to make the 4th one, desirable, and hope that she can catch the eye of some lord and he can take care of their struggling family.
Yeah. That's heartbreaking. That's absolutely heartbreaking. But it's a very realistic direction to take a magic system that functions this way. That's something, again, that I see a lot of in Brandon Sanderson's writing. He gives you this magic system, gives you some very specific defined rules, and then he plays with it in ways that you go, oh yeah, I hadn't considered that. And that's exactly how something like this would work today, for example, in our world, if we had this kind of magic system. You would absolutely have people making that terrible, heartbreaking choice to take away endowments from, for example, an entire family to gift one individual. It's just a very hard, realistic way of looking at trying to live, trying to
you
make
get into the morality of it, which
system.
I don't know if we'll dive into later.
I think we will want to dive into the sort of the moral implications and ethical implications of the endowments and dedicate system, but we are talking about the characters right now. And so with Borenson, so he has this initial thing where he's set up with Mirima and he's happy about that, but then they find out that Raja 10 is attacking, and so he has to ride off and leave Mirima behind, and he is then given orders by Gaborn's father, King Orden, that he must kill any dedicates in Castle Silveresta. He's supposed to harry Raja 10's army, draw him out to Castle Longmont for this trap, where Castle Longmont is basically Helm's Deep. You'll see the description of it later in the book. It is essentially Helm's Deep from Lord of the Rings. And so Borenson has this horrible burden on himself where he's been ordered by his king to kill his king's best friend and his daughter, because they are now dedicates and their endowments are serving Raja 10. And not just them, but Raja 10 took hundreds of endowments from just the normal people and the soldiers in Castle Silveresta, these people who should be
that's not a big
allies.
Impact on how much he already has. That's the terrifying part.
Yeah, and so Borenson has this tremendous weight on his shoulders that he knows, he's gonna have to do this horrible thing, and he keeps telling himself, I am not death. I am not death. And he talks about
almost
how
like
he laughs and he smiles when he's in combat, and he keeps telling himself, I'm not doing this because I enjoy it, I do it because it scares other people. But the way it comes across when he keeps saying, I am not death, it's almost more like he's trying to convince himself, and he's maybe not fully succeeding. And so, like Iome with her endowment of glamour, Borenson also has a really interesting internal struggle in the first half, and where we leave off in this one, he has been convinced by Gaborn to at least hold off on killing Iome and her father until Gaborn can talk to King Orden and see if he can convince him otherwise to countermand the orders. But that's just those two. Borenson still has a giant target on the Dedicate's Keep in Castle Silveresta, which at the end of this section is totally undefended.
Borenson is a character that immediately I liked. I don't think we're getting enough Borenson. I want a lot more Borenson. He's a badass. There's not much else to say besides he's just a total badass.
Oh, yeah.
I loved. I don't have a whole lot to say about Borenson specifically, but I do want to bring to our attention right here in this discussion one particular moment with Borenson where I I smiled. I just straight up smiled when I was in the middle of working on the production line, and I was like, yes. He nailed that line. He nailed it. And it was at the very end of a specific chapter. I want to say it was around 14, 15, when Borenson begins to chuckle as he's starting to battle. Or maybe he's continuing battle, but he makes he gives this kind of mental anecdote. He describes how his master or his trainer used to do that, and how he's absorbed that habit of laughing in battle. Maybe he doesn't know how he absorbed it. Maybe he just decided to let it influence him, but it does unnerve his opponents. It does kind of make them scared of him in some cases. Some cases it makes them angry. It's a very useful tool, I imagine, in combat. But the way that chapter ended specifically with him beginning to chuckle as he started fighting, and I was like, yes, Borenson, badass.
I think one of my favorite moments with Borenson is when he's kind of flinging insults at Raja 10.
God, I think that's the very next scene, or the scene right before the one I was talking about.
I gotta find this quote because it is the one about so funny.
The bitches.
Yeah, God, where he in very cultured terms accuses Raja 10 of bestiality. let me see if I can find it. Here it is. Raja 10, in the south they call you the Wolf Lord, but my lord says you are no wolf, that you are born of a common whippet, and that you have not the natural affections of a man, but instead are given to fondling bitches. What say you?
That's so good. That's the ultimate come at me, bro. Right there. And to say it to somebody like Raja 10.
Is there a more polite way to insult someone?
Oh, God.
No, but really, I think it's really big for his character in that here is one of the most powerful men in the world, and he's walking up to him and flinging insults at him.
Yeah, and the whole time Borenson is terrified that he's going to mess up and that he's like, I'm a warrior, I'm not a diplomat, I'm not good at bandying words around.
I remember in his scene, he was talking, in that scene, he was specifically remembering, of course, and fearing that he got off track from his pseudo script that was given to him by Gaborn's father. Was that part of the script? Because that was awesome. I want to know if Gaborn's father basically just told him, say whatever comes to you, or if he specifically told him to piss him off, or if that was just a spur of the moment decision.
Oh, it was definitely a spur of the moment thing.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh my God, I love Borenson. He's awesome.
So I actually have one, before we move on to the next character, I actually have one technical question about this moment regarding voice. There's a point where Borenson specifically mentions that he can ignore Raja 10's voice due to his own training. So my question is, how far does that go? I think he specifically says something like recognizing voice.
Yeah. I don't think we ever really get a firm description of how or why, other than that we're just told that it's possible. And he talks about how like all of King Orden's soldiers have to go through this training to recognize and resist voice. Because as we see, Silveresta's troops certainly did not have that training.
No, they did not. Even if they did, I'm not sure if it would have mattered with somebody like Raja
there were
10.
like 2 or 3 of them who resisted, and that was it. Like Captain Alt and Captain Darrow, who also awesome characters, but had unfortunate ends. When you're the only guys who are resisting, and
R.I.P.
You know, but
it was just one of those little subtleties of the magic system that I enjoyed. The ability to kind of train yourself to resist something like voice. I suppose you might be able to do a similar thing with glamour, but I don't know.
And it is worth noting that Borenson was at a distance there.
That's true.
Like when Raja 10 comes up. You know, like when Raja 10 yells at everybody to serve him and to throw down their weapons, King Silveresta himself resists it. But then when Raja 10 comes into the courtyard, when he tells them to kneel to him at that close proximity, it's like Silveresta's knees just go out and he's bowing
just
before
to take
him.
it on a 30-second tangent here, I don't want to go too far off track, but that just made me think of something, and I want to get this out of the way before I forget. Do you think that this has something to do specifically with his endowment of voice and its diminishing effect perhaps over a distance, or do you think maybe it's the fact that at that close of a range, once he got into Castle Silveresta, his glamour started to take effect since he could see him?
Both.
Both? Yeah.
Like glamour has the same issue. Like over distance, they can still tell. People can tell that he's beautiful.
Okay.
But it doesn't have as powerful an effect as it does close
So when
up.
you're closer to him, you can hear his voice better. You can hear the nuances, the cadence of his voice. You can see him in a lot more detail. And at that point, the sheer amount of his endowments, just makes people helpless, right? Like completely unable to resist a man like him. So you guys want to talk really quickly about Raja 10?
Sure.
Or okay. So I want to say right off the bat that this might piss a bunch of people off, but I find him to be very similar to Terry Goodkind's Darken Rawl.
Okay.
He and I have just a little point that I wrote down on my phone here, in my notes here. He's a painfully handsome, falsely benevolent, immortal emperor who conquers nations with his splendor and beauty, all the while hiding a terrible cruelty, and using his unique knowledge of long-forgotten magics to live up to the image of a legendary ancestor. So in Darken Rawl's case being Panis Ral, in Raja 10's case being Dalen Hammer. So I found a lot of similarities between the two. But other than that, I mean, it's kind of hard, I think, in fantasy not to make a character, or at least a bad guy, that perfect, if you will. I mean, he's intimidating. He's incredibly intimidating as a character, and I can't. Reading that chapter where he takes over Castle Silveresta with a single arrow fired, that's it. It was terrifying. It's like, holy crap! This is not just a man. This is a force.
If you want insight into his character, he just ruthlessly kills his cousin. Is it?
Yeah.
Without even a second thought.
Yeah, the way you get a sense for his insane. I want to say insane, but his the level of his potential cruelty, as story was told about the Sultan who denied him.
Yeah. And
he burned the Sultan's sons alive one at a time before flinging the son's corpse into the city with a catapult. And I was like, God damn, that is some Darken Rawl level shit right there.
So an interesting thing with Raja 10, we get just a couple of brief points of view from him in this.
Yeah.
And
they're very, very
those, we find out that he is actually a little bit conflicted. So we have one scene that's not from his point of view, where the Earth Warden Binisman confronts him and exhorts him to abandon his flame weavers, abandon his service to the fire, and to serve the Earth and protect mankind in the dark times to come. And he refuses. And then we see him again where he's we're actually in Raja 10's point of view, and he's hunting Gaborn, trying to catch his scent because he's got, these thousands of endowments of smell. And he sort of gets seduced by this powerful earth magic presence, and he finds himself wanting to serve the Earth.
Yes.
And wanting to be responsible and be a good leader. And then as he's sort of maybe starting to tip over that line, one of his flame weavers comes up and yells at him, and it snaps him out of it, and he goes back to being evil.
As a reader, you're left there going, oh, God damn it, it was so close.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. Yeah. What about you, Jarrod?
He's certainly a classic evil guy, doing evil things and trying to justify them.
Kind of stereotypical, do you think?
For the greater good kind of thing. Hey, we have this Reaver problem, and,
Yeah, the Reavers. I want to talk about the Reavers.
By going, he's trying to justify. He reminds me kind of the Lord Ruler.
Mm-hmm. A little bit. He's definitely
Mistborn.
Got some Lord Ruler in him, or maybe the Lord Ruler has a little bit of him in him.
Right.
Because this novel was published in 99, 98. I read it and I totally forgot it a second
I think
afterward.
earlier than that.
I thought it was
first edition was June 98.
Oh, boom, nailed it again. I'm on fire today, ladies and gentlemen. Hell yeah. I'm a little drunk too, so I'm gonna apologize from here on out for any tangents I take.
No, I like.
Raja 10.
No, I guess the only other thing I would say about Raja 10 is I like that kind of aspect in antagonists, even if they are, clearly evil maniacs, kind of adding that gray area to their character.
Where it's like, under different circumstances, he could be a great hero instead.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I think I want to point out that at this point, just before we get to Drew's impressions here on Raja 10, we're at about 51 minutes elapsed right now. No, sorry, we're at about 45 minutes. Are you guys okay with making this a bit of a longer episode? Because right about now, we'd normally be starting the final draft, but I feel like we're just kind of really getting into the meat.
I think
the Runelords.
we will run a little bit longer than an hour on this one.
Good. Okay, let's do it. Yes. Let's hear it. My man, Drew McCaffrey.
It's more or less what I mentioned there, where I like Raja 10 quite a lot as an antagonist because
he's a brilliant antagonist.
He is a layered and dynamic antagonist, especially as the series goes on. You're going to see how Raja 10 changes and how
the series goes on. So he's not just in this. Oh shit! I shouldn't have asked.
I mean, he's the principal antagonist of the series. You can't expect him to go down in the first book.
Okay, cool. I didn't know he'd be the principal antagonist. I thought like the Reavers were going to be a much bigger deal later on.
Don't worry, they will be. The Reavers will be.
Oh, hey, let's have a segment where I make predictions. I totally forgot to
we'll get there. We'll get
write any down though. Okay.
No, we'll get there.
Go on.
And anyway, so he's not a static villain, and that's what I like a lot about him. And even more so is the authorial choice by Farland to put us in his villain's head. It's very easy to create a villain and just let him be evil and kind of like over there and just put him in opposition to your heroes and run with it. But he makes this choice to give us points of view from Raja 10 and in certain ways attempt to make him a sympathetic character. And trust me, at least from my perspective, as this goes on, he succeeds in that.
Yeah, he definitely does. And there's a very specific moment I wanna bring up when for me Raja 10 went from being a kind of faceless protagonist needs to be defeated force to suddenly, oh my god, this guy actually sounds almost reasonable. And that was when we were in the point of view of one of his advisors. I forget his name. Starts with a J.
Yeah, Jarrod.
Thank you. Jarrod. He when we learned, because at the very beginning, up to this point, through the first 15, 16 chapters, Raja 10 is just like, he's this incredibly intimidating figure with thousands and thousands of endowments. But when we're in Jareen's point of view, we learn that, okay, he's taken precisely 6 endowments, I think it was, of metabolism. So he's got a deadline. He's got 3 years, or maybe he's at 3 years. How does that work?
He had 6 years, and he's used 3.
He had 6 years. Okay, good. So he's got a 3-year deadline, and we learn, of course, a little bit more about Raja 10's specific endowments and his abilities in that scene as well. Like I said, about his deadline. So to me, that one specific scene was probably the most pivotal in terms of humanizing Raja 10 and deciding, okay, so this isn't just a one-dimensional villain. This is a guy who struggles. This is a guy who's taken it upon himself, and he legitimately believes in what he's doing. Because if he was doing this completely selfishly, and by this I mean taking this many endowments and aiming to become the image of the sum of all men, if he was doing this completely selfishly, he wouldn't have taken the endowments of metabolism, or at least no more than he absolutely needed to, because he would want to extend his lifespan. The fact that he's willing to accept a 3-year lifespan, or from that point it was 6, I suppose, really adds a lot of weight to what he's trying to accomplish and why he's decided to do it. So that was a very specific character-defining moment for me in terms of Raj 10 as a guy. And I just want to give a shout out to Ray Porter, who does who narrates the audiobook.
Oh, okay.
He does a really great job with Raja 10, and he does a really great job, a damn great job with Businessman. who I want to talk about next. Do you want to move on to Businessman?
Sure.
Businessmen or Businessman? Is it an A or an E?
It's Binnesman.
Okay, Businessman. Good. I just had one note about Businessman, and I'm not going to censor myself. So, Pat, if you're editing this later, you might want to censor this. I fucking love Businessman. He doesn't give a fuck. Ray Porter does a fantastic job with a wise, old, but still strong man who takes bullshit from no one, not even immortal emperors. That scene, of course, I had just finished the scene where he confronts Raja 10.
Yeah.
And that was brilliant. That was the moment where it was like, he felt a lot like Gandalf.
Yeah,
definitely.
He was pretty much like, I don't give a shit who you are, what you're capable of. This is how it is. Don't f with this. I'm gonna walk out.
Yeah.
The fact that he was the first and only one so far that Iomi has seen leave Raja 10's presence without being dismissed.
Yeah.
Was a very, very, very big moment for me, specifically to me, reading that moment. What about you guys?
He reminds me very much of Gandalf, I would say.
Yeah. He's a Earth Wizard. Is that the term?
Earth Warden.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize again. The diehard fans are going to be really irritated with me. I'm just getting into this world, and I'm listening to it in one ear, right next to a very loud machine. So, but going on from here,
the magic users. So obviously, there's the whole endowment system, and then there is also a pretty straightforward elemental magic: earth, fire, water, air. And those.
Oh, really?
Because
I've only seen the flame at this point. We have.
So their earth magic users are called Earth Wardens.
Earth Wizards,
fire users are called Flame Weavers.
Flame Weavers, I've heard that one.
Air users are called Sky Lords.
Ooh.
And then you have water wizards, and there are specific types of water wizards called Undyne. So,
but the other elementals don't have specific subclasses?
They do a little bit.
Is this a spoilery thing?
Yeah. And honestly,
okay, let's raffle that one.
Yeah, like I'll revisit that after we finish book 4, because we're probably not going to go. We're not going to read the whole series. We're only going to read the first.
No, not consecutively. Yeah.
The first 4. So this is an important point for any people who are considering maybe picking this up or are reading along with us or whatever. The Runelords is currently 8 books, but it is 2 sub-series. The first 4 books is the Earth King series, and then books 5 through 8 and the forthcoming 9th book are the Scions of the Earth series. And so we're just going to be reading the Earth King series.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, the back 4 or 5 books, it starts off pretty strong, but it definitely falls off in quality, unfortunately.
Sorry, it falls off in quality where?
At about book 7.
Okay.
So
okay.
It changes a lot. The story changes quite a lot. The world changes. There's different focus on magic and stuff. It's just not as interesting. Anyway, I don't really have much more to add as far as Businessman goes right now. I'm going to talk a lot more about him in the next episode when we finish the book.
Sure.
Because there's quite a lot more with him in the second half.
Same.
But so I want to get into predictions. I want to see what Rob is thinking about here.
Ooh, okay. Now this is a very sensitive moment. This is where I'm like, do I want to say all the crazy things that are coming in my head? People who know what's going to happen are going to be judging me.
And we gotta keep
all
poker
right,
faces.
So here's what I think. This is what I think is going down. There was a moment very early on in Gaborn's chapters, or Gaborn's point of view, where he had this moment of, I want to say, connection with the Earth, if you will. When he sensed that kind of trembling that wasn't trembling, some sort of feeling of anticipation, some sort of feeling, I want to say freedom. And the fact that the very first words of this book were discussing the Earth King and the effigies for the Earth King and all these figurines around the town and these sculptings and the paintings of the Earth King. And then within a chapter or two, we see Gaborn just kind of like feeling the earth tremble around him and feeling an anticipatory feeling. I thought, okay, so there might be a connection between Gaborn and the Earth King. And of course, we did see that a few chapters later. We saw him take the oath. The Earth King was kind of personified there. I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
That was kind of creepy, honestly,
Yeah, it was.
reading that for the first time. So I think Gaborn is going to either become the Earth King, or he's going to be some sort of hand or some sort of force through which the Earth King works. And I'm thinking that the Reavers are going to be a lot bigger of a deal. Raja 10 seems to be very focused on them for some reason, for somebody who just seems to be like conquering everything tirelessly, endlessly, and very well. Like he doesn't seem to have a lot of resistance as far as the kingdoms he's overcome, from what I've heard so far. But he seems to be very focused on the Reavers. So I'm thinking that the Reavers are going to be the ultimate threat, if you will. But then, Drew, earlier in this podcast, you said that he's kind of the main antagonist through the series. So that kind of brings me with a little bit of doubt as to the importance of the Reavers. But then after that, you said the Reavers are coming back in. So I think the Reavers are going to be the ultimate end of the day big threat that unites everybody. Yeah, that's basically it. Shit, what else do I think? I think Iomi is going to die. I think Gaborn needs a little something extra to push him, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe Gaborn is going to die. My predictions about him becoming involved with the Earth King or replacing the Earth King are false, and that Iomi needs a little bit of a booster, if you will. I mean, obviously don't know this is going to happen, but I know it's going to happen. Bennisman's going to die sooner. Bennisman is going to die eventually, right? He has to die. He has to leave something on people to fight without his presence, because he's too comforting and too calm and self-assured right now. By the way, another thing I wanted to bring about Bennisman, the way he just straight up to Raj's face, he told him, "Yeah, I let the prince escape."
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Have you seen, I helped him escape last night. You know? I expected him to die right there on that spot, but I still think he's going to. Eventually. He's going to die in book 1 or book 2. A character like that, I think, needs to die right away to leave a kind of legacy behind, people to remember him. What would he say? But I think that's about the end of my predictions.
Like a fly you fools moment.
Yeah, exactly. Like, fly, you fools.
So, do you have any predictions for what's going to happen at the end of this book?
At the end of this book, he is going Raja 10. Okay. So, the sum of all men, specifically the namesake of this book, that's an awesome idea. The fact that there might be something more that we don't know about this magic system. Dalen Hammer. Mm-hmm. I feel like we're going to find out more about him. By the way, I was preparing for this podcast by reading a summary of the Runelords and the plot in book 1. I accidentally clicked on a link that was actually describing the entirety of the series, and I came this close, for those who can't see, which is everybody except Drew and Jarrod. I came a quarter inch from accidentally spoiling something very big for myself concerning Dalen Hammer. It said, and by book 6, we find out that Dalen Hammer is, and then I wasn't wearing my glasses. I had taken my glasses off, so the next peripheral words were blurred out. I didn't see that. So apparently we find out something about Dalen Hammer in book 6. I don't know what it is, and I'm glad that I did manage to decipher that. Yeah. But the sum of all men, the fact that Dalen Hammer at one point was said to have had his powers regardless of the fact that his dedicates regained theirs, or they got theirs back. There was an exception with him.
Oh, no. Like when his dedicates died, he didn't lose his endowments.
When his dedicates died, thank you. He didn't lose his endowments. I was like, whoa, that's a clear breaking of the rules that we've seen up to this point. The fact that Raj Aten is trying to kind of take that mantle, I think is a huge threat. I think we could see that happen, considering this book is called The Sum of All Men, and perhaps Gaborn is going to have to find a way to combat him with his powers of the earth, or his influence, or his knowledge with, and his camaraderie with the Earth King. So yeah, that's basically what I think. Gaborn versus Raja 10, Earth versus the Sum of All Men.
All right.
Sound good?
Yeah.
You guys want to move on to the final draft?
Yeah, let's do it.
Or do you have more you want to talk about?
I think I've covered pretty much everything I wanted to on this episode. Obviously, we're going to dig into some more things when we get into the second half of this book on the next episode.
Yeah, I have some stuff that's better suited for the next episode.
So, yeah.
Sweet.
So, yeah, let's get into the final draft.
The final draft, ladies and gentlemen. Drew, let's start with you. What have you been drinking thus far tonight?
So, I have been drinking a thematically appropriate beer from the
I was going to ask if it was thematically appropriate, because
Yes.
you said you were really excited about announcing this one, but I was like, I was going to ask if it was thematically appropriate, but Elantris was. Go ahead.
So, it's from the Lost Abbey, which is a brewery in California.
The Lost Abbey?
And it's an oak-aged wild ale, so sour ale. It was delicious. Okay. It is called Ghosts in the Forest.
Ghosts in the Forest. That's the name of this IPA?
It's not an IPA. It's a sour beer.
It's not an IPA. It's a sour beer. Oh, okay. I thought you said pale ale.
No. Wild ale.
Okay. Wild ale. Thank you.
Yes, Ghosts in the Forest, which I thought was fitting considering the whites in the Dunwood.
Yeah, the whites are creepy as hell, by the way. Holy. I guess they're kind of creepy across any medium. Whites in video games, whites in books, whites in movies, they're always creepy as shit.
Is Drew going to be able to come up with a thematic beer for every single episode?
Probably not everyone, but
that's
already
gonna be difficult.
I will tell you right now,
the challenge.
I already have a beer lined up for episode 2 of Brotherhood of the Wolf, which is the second book in this series. And you guys are gonna roll your eyes so hard, but you're gonna die laughing too.
Yes, I love wordplay. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, Jarrod.
Okay, so I got a Blood Orange Saison from Upslope Brewing Company, which is in Boulder. It's basically just an
Boulder,
ale.
Colorado.
Oh, okay, cool.
Just an ale with blood oranges and spice.
An ale with blood oranges and spice. Oh, nice. What's the percentage on that? Are you drunk, my man?
6.0.
Yeah. Oh, let's
7.0?
6.0.
6.0. Not bad. Strong beer.
Actually,
not too strong.
What is
though.
this? I don't know what mine was. Oh, mine is also 6.0. Interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I have foregone the beer for today, and I decided to pick up something that I know well, something that I can talk about. I am drinking Scotch today. I went and picked up a medium range Scotch. This is a Glenfiddich. It's single malt Scotch whiskey. This is the 12-year aged. Up here in Canada, it's a $60 bottle for a 26er. But this is hands down. Like, I am a huge whiskey man. I'm a Scotch fan specifically. But this one here is, without question, this is my favorite Scotch. Especially for the price. I mean, $60 for a 26er sounds like a lot of money, but in terms of Scotch, it's really not that bad.
Certainly.
12-year, the green bottle. The 14 comes in an orange bottle up here. The 15 comes in a red. But the single malt Scotch whiskey by Glenfiddich, it's I find it's very easy to drink. I can drink it straight. I normally mix it with just a splash of water. I drink it neat, room temperature. Of course, as a Scotch, it's a liquor. It's 40% alcohol. But what I like about the Glenfiddich 12 is that it's got it's very fruity but smoky. It kind of combines those two in a very interesting way. So I mean, that is hands down my go-to drink, and I can't tout that one enough. This bottle I'm hoping will last me at least 3 podcasts. I'm only going to drink on these podcasts. So
have you saved it for a while?
That's what I've been drinking. Yeah, I'm hoping it'll last till Christmas. I don't think that's going to happen because before Christmas we've still got it's November 10th today. 11th? 10th. So we've still got 7 weeks before Christmas.
Yeah.
No, this is actually not going to last. This is definitely not going to last. I'm going to have to get another one before then.
Hopefully by then we will have our episodes will have already gone live. And
we're hoping to start releasing these at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. By then we'll have 7-8 podcasts as a buffer built up. Shout out, by the way, to Patrick McCaffrey, who has volunteered to kind of just engineer these podcasts and kind of edit them together. Does Patrick read? I want to get him on here sometime.
He will definitely be a guest on here. he was not a particular fan of the Runelords, so I did invite him, but he averred. We'll definitely have him on when we cover the Wheel of Time.
Sweet.
Some of the Cosmere stuff.
Sweet.
The main ones, so these are going to be new ones for Rob when we get around to it, but the Black Company and the Gap Cycle have to be covered on this podcast.
I've heard so much about both.
And Pat is a huge fan of both, so we will definitely have some fresh opinions coming in from there when we get around to those.
Little confession, I started reading Black Company, and I didn't get much into it. I started the first book. I got, I want to say 20 pages in. Haven't picked it up since. But by the way, Drew kind of the way that he talks about it makes me want to read it. You are a huge fan of Glenn Cook, yes?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And of course, Drew and I, going back 9 years now, we like a lot of the same stuff. This is something that Drew has been trying to get me to read for years and years.
I can relate.
Years. And I trust him. I know it's going to be fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I know it's going to be fucking awesome. I just got to get into it. Do we want to actually, no, let's do that at the end of the next podcast. I was going to say, do we want to decide what book we're doing next? But we still have the second half of this book. Let's save that for the next the next episode. So that brings the final draft to an end. Do you guys have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, Jared, any final thoughts here?
I got nothing.
No, we're all good?
Well, so I just want to say that I've been really enjoying diving back into the Runelords. It's been... like I said, 5 or 6 years. And
when did you first read the Runelords?
I first picked up the Runelords. It would have been winter of 6th grade.
So how old are you now? You're 29?
I am 28. So I would have been 11 years old.
I thought you were 4 years older than me, not 2.
Turning 12, like just about 12 years old. And I actually have a kind of a funny story with it.
Go for it.
We were on a family vacation in Hawaii, and I had already gotten into the Wheel of Time by this point. And at this point, the Wheel of Time was only 9 books. Winter's Heart had come out about a year and a half before that. I cruised through all those, and I was just rereading. And I brought 3 Wheel of Time books on this 8-day Hawaii vacation, and I cruised through them. And I wanted to read, I was like, I need to read something new. And
you read 3 Wheel of Time books in 8 days?
Oh, yeah, dude.
Oh, my man.
It's not human.
Oh, wow.
Dude.
Not human.
I mean...
Hashtag not human.
All I was doing was sitting on the beach and reading. It was great. Anyway, so I wandered down the, kind of the little beach walk to this shopping center, and there was a little Walden Books, and I walked in, and I was looking through the science fiction fantasy section, and the cover of the Runelords immediately leapt out to me.
Speaking of the cover...
It is done by Daryl K. Sweet, who is the same guy.
Yes, I didn't know that until I Wikipedia'd the Runelords. Yep. And it said, cover art, Daryl K. Sweet. And I was like, oh my god, I should have recognized that.
You can see some of the style for sure.
Right away.
And that was 100% why I picked it up. I looked at it, I was like, this looks like the Wheel of Time. I want to read this. And
you hear that a lot with Daryl K. Sweet. Like his work with the Wheel of Time was so iconic that people will pick up any book that has his art on the cover. I guess it's a specific style that he brings to the table. It's very eye-catching, I suppose. Yeah. But I'm sure those with more knowledge in the Department of Arts and painting specifically would have more to say about that. I have no talent in the visual arts at all, but I still feel like I can recognize a Daryl K. Sweet work right away.
Oh, absolutely.
Right away.
Very distinctive style. So yeah, that was my that's my kind of closing thought. Rob, do you have anything you want to add?
How many Runelords books are there? 9? You said the 9th is coming out?
Yeah. So there's 4 in the Earth King series, and there will be 5 in the Scions of the Earth series. The final book is...
Do you know that the forthcoming book is in fact the final book? Awesome. So this is a very momentous kind of time, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's been a long time coming.
When is that?
The 8th book.
When is it being released?
So there isn't a hard date, but it sounds like it's going to be sometime the summer of next year.
Right.
But yeah,
cool.
the 8th book came out in 2008 2008 or 2009.
No shit.
So
It's been like 10 years?
Yeah, it's been a long time. I know David Farland had there were some family issues. His son was in a really bad accident and like had a terrible head injury, was in a coma. And he had to kind of put aside Runelords to work on other stuff and like pay off medical bills and thankfully his son has recovered and is doing really well. He apparently graduated high school and he's doing well for himself. But
Good.
But just this summer, a few months ago, David Farland started posting and saying he was back to writing the Runelords and was expecting to have it done and out middle of next year sometime.
Sweet. And it's great to hear from an author who's been 8 or 9 years on hiatus exactly what's happening with his book and
right?
when he's expecting to finish it and release it. Rothfuss. Sorry.
Martin.
Oh yeah, god damn it. Jesus. Sorry, these things just happen. They just come out of me. I don't know what's happening.
Pat just coughed and said Rothfuss from the other room too.
Yeah. Did he really?
Yeah.
My man. Man after my own heart.
Everyone knows it's Rothfuss.
As far as the we didn't even need to name him, did we? Love you, Patrick Rothfuss. What was I gonna say? Now, the closing thoughts on Runelords, specifically on the Runelords. It seems I thought it was older than it was. Like honestly, listening to the book, listening to the tropes, even though they have very unique spins on them, and I like the way that he handles very specific fantasy tropes. I thought the book, I was expecting when I first researched it, I was expecting to see published 1970, published 1960. It was, seeing that it was 1998, I was like, oh, wow, okay. But then hearing from you, Drew, that it's still being, completed, that it's still being written, kind of reaffirms my faith in it. I thought it was falling into a lot of traps. Runelords, his writing, specifically his writing, David Farland's writing, his exposition is superb. I have absolutely no qualms with the way he writes and his talent of writing. This guy is a writer. He is like, there's nothing else he could have been. I want to bring up a point that I mentioned well over an hour ago now. The way that he can add a lot of description in terms of the senses, in terms of the scene, the smell, the atmosphere. He can add like 2 paragraphs of description, but make it not seem out of place or slow or boring. And it seems like it fits right in. A lot of authors like Robert Jordan, again, when you can read a whole bunch of exposition and then somebody says a line of dialogue comes in and you go, oh, that's right, we're in the middle of a scene where people are talking. It doesn't seem to happen with David Farland. He can go off on a tangent for a page, it seems like, and then another dialogue line comes in and you're still right there in the scene. It doesn't seem out of place. So I think that's a very rare talent that I don't see in a lot of other authors.
Yeah. It's a good point. So I think we're gonna wrap up here. We did go a little long. More than a little.
We're at 1 hour and 19 minutes.
Yeah.
But for the episode, I think we're only
rather long.
113.
But
maybe 110.
But yeah, so this has been
Inking Out Loud, episode 3.
Yeah, episode 3. We're cooking along here. So thanks for listening, and we'll
yes, thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
We will pick up next weekend with the recording of episode 4 for the final part of the Runelords, book 1, The Sum of All Men. Thank you, everybody.
Yep.
Goodbye.